Phew. Continuing my travel vlog series, what can I really say? Portugal rocked my world, and not in the most fun of ways, but there were a lot of fun moments. Portugal is a culture that I really enjoy in so many ways, and what happened to me there just threw me off so much that I didn't really get to enjoy it in the way that I wish I would have. So first of all, the way that I travel is unique, I would say. I'm traveling, doing my workshops as I go. So I want to go to places where I can create things and make things happen. And that's one of my biggest priorities is being of service and continuing to get these channeled works and this powerful frequency out to people. So I went to Portugal for that reason as well. And I also went actually kind of as a retreat because doing these events all the time is amazing and is tiring. So I wanted to have downtime where I could really focus on some of my creative projects, some of my studies, some of my work itself, and I didn't really get to do that at all. I was invited there by a pretty good friend of mine who was with a partner of hers, and then they broke up. So we were going to stay in her partner's place, and then she would look for a place where both of us could live together and we could rent it together. And I was like, okay, cool, great, that's amazing. And when I got there, the story was that she found a place for herself in a caravan in a community where I could camp next nearby and live in a tent. Um, and this was just not appealing to me. I, you know, back in the day, when I first started living like this, I was, a couple degrees above typical homelessness, you could say. I sometimes, traveling place to place, who knew where I was going to stay? So camping outside was very common. And going to rainbow gatherings, going to all these festivals, blah, blah, blah. I grew out of this intense hippiness of my past. And of course, I still want to go to festivals and everything. But I have to weigh on the scales what is actually going to serve me the most because my priorities are health integration and continuing to focus on my work and my spiritual growth. And festivals are a little bit exhausting and draining. And so many of my friends and a lot of people I would have probably been great friends with went to Boom Festival in Portugal. It's one of the biggest electronic festivals in the world. There's like 40,000 people there. And I chose not to go to kind of integrate my energy and be in a more secure place. And then what happens is my friend is just dropping these things with on me like, oh well, I know I said this, but it has to be this way, and I have to be very selfish right now, and I'm blah blah blah. Um, really really threw me off, and even our time together wasn't really that settled and grounding for me either. So this intention that I had to ground and integrate just got totally shattered, and I was actually probably more disturbed and thrown off than I would have been if I had gone to the festival and just had a good time. Lesson one: uh, don't try to force yourself to save energy when you feel like doing something, because if it's there and you feel like doing it, just do it and you'll have the energy for what you need to do later. I learned this, but I went earlier to fairy gathering in May, and it took 2 weeks there. It took me a week to recover from that. So I wanted to be careful, but I was a little too careful, but not careful enough at the same time, as I should have known that my friend had was kind of all over the place, but I want to assume the best in people, and sometimes people that I have the most fun with aren't necessarily the same people that are the most reliable. And with time, I'm like, yeah, reliability is a lot more important than how great of a time we have together, because now I'm not sure if I'll really have a great time with this person again. I got pretty mad, and I chose not to live in the tent, and I chose instead to change my flight. But because I wasn't choosing that option, and mind you, I couldn't even move directly into the tent with her and like start then. It was like all of these weeks that we'd planned to be together. I was just kind of left, and was like, oh well, I'll move in this state, which was like, you know, a week or 10 days from that moment where we parted ways for a moment because she got this other work trade opportunity that I couldn't join after, the plan was we're doing this together. Um, so anyway, I went back to Lisbon, and boy, can I tell you, Lisbon is interesting, but Lisbon is a lot. So many hills, just so climbing up and down all the time. There's very little green space. There's so many people around all the time, and it was actually very touristic and a little bougie. And I wanted to go to some of the gay clubs and go to different places to meet people, but people didn't take that much interest in me when I was out and about, and people who wanted to meet were very flaky, and I just, you know, I didn't want to go to all the tourist things. There's castles, there's this, there's that, but I'm on this long European tour. Everywhere I go, there's castles and this and that, and it's interesting. It's cool. When I was, some years ago, I went to Peru, and there's an archaeological site every 10 minutes, and I was in this phase where I went to site after site after site, and then after a couple months there, I was like, well, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? It's like I feel energy from these places. I feel something, but it's not like seeing this is going to be a big part of my ultimate evolution and growth or something. It's like it's fun at a passing moment, like once a month or something. See this old cool ancient thing, or if you have a ritual in mind, then there's actually like the space and the set and setting at a site like that. You can do ritual and energy work there. Those have been some of the most powerful, deep experiences I've had. Um, but yeah, I wasn't necessarily feeling that. I did go with some friends to a place called Sintra, and I've got to say that was really beautiful. And there were a lot of like statues of ancient gods and goddesses, and there was this very interesting spiral staircase initiation well that it was said to be a place where they used to do initiations into tarot and occult studies. And I could really feel an energy there, and I knew that there was a lot moving around in that space. But people told me about some other spaces nearby there where modern people still practice animal sacrifice, and you could go and you could find the remnants of sacrifices there. And that to me is very archaic. Being in this occult world, I hear of people here and there who go to the witch place, or in Mexico it's called the brujeria. Go to the place of the brujas, where they're doing these sacrifices and gaining these powers. And um, that could be, the hearsay could be a whole other video. Like I've some of my friends are way into the cult, and I've heard some of the most bizarre stories of powers people have obtained from doing things like sacrifice. But for me, that isn't the occult energy that I want at all. There's so many traditions that involve no harm to others, and that's kind of what I'm about. And um, the powers that I'm interested in are for helping people. So it's these psychic tools like the channeling, where we can see and tap into a higher wisdom, and not just do some crazy crazy magical performance in a way for show to prove to others that we can. Um, I don't need to prove that. I want to help myself. So anyway, that was kind of a tirade. It's not to say that there's tons of people in Portugal practicing animal sacrifice, but it does still exist. Um, and so what else happened? I mean, I'm really fortunate that through what I do and what I share, I have this wide audience, and in many places I'm able to stay with friends from my travels host me, and that is what allows me to go to different places, because if I don't have somebody inviting me there, I don't go if it is expensive. That's why I am in Mexico. I do get paid well for my sessions, but I don't get that terribly many. My sessions would not pay for a life in the modern. Maybe that I don't think that's true. I think I'm just bad with money, but it would be very very difficult for me. I would say that to live in developed countries in a good place to be, because of course there's the outskirts places in developed countries, but I don't want to be where I can't meet anyone and hang out with the interesting vibing people and a nice gay community. I'm not doing that. So anyway, I can't basically go to developed countries unless I have somebody who is grounded there and is helping a little bit. And I guess my friend who is living in Portugal doesn't have that same understanding or way of doing things that I do, and thought I would just be able to figure it out, even though I'm not going back on that. It's just yeah, I'm still processing that, obviously. Anyway, I was in hostels and they weren't cheap, and it really threw me off, especially because I missed my flight on the way here, on the way there, and was just what's going on. Anyway, um, really like I was feeling like I'm doing so good for this trip, going to places that I don't know well, very far away from home, and feeling like I really need some savings as protection to make sure everything works out. It really screwed me up. And on top of that, I just didn't have fun. And hostels really, like, I'm so energetically sensitive. Like, after a week in hostels, like, every time somebody would go in the room, I would jump, I would shudder, I would be like, and like, I would just, be like this, like, all the time. Like, oh my God, can I please be in a place where there's not other people around me for a second? And so landing, my nervous system feels so much better. I'm still like shaking some things off and crying, releasing some things these days. But boy, that was not that easy. Um, and what did I love about Portugal? I love the word obrigado. I just love the way it sounds. It sounds so beautiful when you say thank you, obrigado. Um, this is kind of irrelevant in a way. It's not that, but it's also kind of strange that it means obliged. And I could see that some other places where it said like the use of the mask is obligatorio, obligatory. It has that same root, and that made me feel weird about the word. So I'm like, am I obliged to things while I'm here? I don't get it. Um, but at the same time, people there were really super so nice. I've never had this happen to me ever before, but somebody in the subway saw I was carrying all of these bags, and she offered to carry one of them down the stairs, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, if you'd like. That's never happened before. Everyone is always like ignoring you in the subways and everything. So that was really touching. And there were a lot of moments where I was like, wow, people here are super, super sweet. And nonetheless, it really made me clear in what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be around um, people who are more similar to me, and I didn't find them that much there. And of course, in the South, there are these spiritual communities and everything, but I think I'm definitely a bit more of a urban person than a rural person, and being way out there didn't feel very right. And this is mostly just because being gay, the gays live in cities, they don't live other places, and to meet people and to have connections, kind of need to be in a city or in a very intentionally set up community where people are. Um, because beyond that, I actually don't like cities. I don't like how intense they are and how smelly they are and how compact things are. But at the same time, so many of the North European cities I have been to, like Berlin, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, have these huge green open spaces that are incredible, and you can still recharge even while you're in the city. So it's it works out well. So what else can I say about Portugal? um, there's beauty to it. There's a lot of beauty to it, and I do appreciate the nice moments I had there with friends, and also um, places just have energy fields, and I could feel it as soon as I landed. Like, now I'm becoming very anxious, and as soon as I got to Amsterdam on my stopover, I'm like, now I'm relaxed, and it's interesting and bizarre. Um, I think this video is a lot more about my experience than about Portugal, and I don't really have anything bad to say about Portugal as a place. I feel like feels like a good place. It just doesn't feel like my place, and the people are so really nice. Um, but I think the one of the really important things I learned is how easily influenced I am by friends, and the habits that a lot of my friends were participating in influenced me to kind of do whatever they were doing, and it really didn't serve me. Um, and I think that's what happened just instantly. It's like I was sucked into these other rhythms and these other ways of being that might have once been something that was, what I would do. But I've changed so much since really being much closer with some of these people that I was hanging out with when when we met, or when, you know, it's a different chapter of life some years ago. And I'm really recognizing the need to be a lot more clear in what I choose and who I trust and what I do with my energy, because there I I simply cannot um, afford on any level to spend another 2 weeks that stressed out and doing these things but not enjoying them. And so that was my experience, guys. um, Sorry to not have the most brilliant and beautiful update like the last one, but it is kind of one of those things where we need the contrast to really appreciate even more what's good. And it was so overwhelmingly good in Denmark that I have a feeling it's going to be just the same way this time. And whatever happens, I'm excited. I'm personally ready to get out of Europe, because when I leave September 12th to Turkey, I'll be in places where I have, in a way, a lot more autonomy, because I will actually be able to afford my own place to rent a room, which is literally just either it's not possible, because it would be possible. Obviously, it would be possible if I could just find a place, but all of these places I've been to, um, or I'm planning to go or have been to, it's like tried to look for sublets and rentals, short-term rentals, and it is near impossible. So I hate hostel life. I despise it, and I never ever want to do it. Being around so many normal people is like having 1,000 needles jabbed into my body at once. What can I say? Um, don't like being around normal people. I like to be in my um, alternative realities, and that's it. Um, so thanks for hearing me. Yeah. Um, I don't mean to be dramatic, but my nervous system has been through a lot, and I'm really, really excited to now, after having all these challenging experiences, to do the routines and disciplines and bring the focus into my life that I want there so much because I know it's going to change many things. That's all for now. Peace, love, and blessings.